The HOA conspiracy that targeted a war hero. The sirens blared through our quiet Riverside Heights neighborhood, and I froze, hedge trimmers in hand, as two police cars screeched into my driveway. My heart sank. I'd spent months dreaming of my wife's return from her deployment on the USS Truman, but instead of a hero's welcome, we were facing a nightmare. Margaret Hayes, our HOA president, stood smugly behind the officers, accusing me of threatening behavior with a weapon. All I'd done was trim our bushes. When my wife, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Thompson, stepped outside and revealed her identity, Margaret's face turned ghostly white. That moment was just the beginning of a battle that would expose a sinister conspiracy and change our community forever. My name is Daniel Carter, a 52-year-old IT consultant working from home in Riverside Heights, a tidy suburb outside Phoenix. 3 years ago, Sarah and I bought our modest ranch-style home, envisioning a peaceful life and maybe starting a family. The tree-lined streets and well-kept lawns promised stability, and the active HOA seemed like a bonus to protect property values. We were wrong. 2 months before Sarah's return from an 8-month deployment, I'd brushed off a call from Horizon Properties offering to buy our house at a steep price. I laughed, telling them this was our forever home. Looking back, that call was the first clue that something was amiss. The trouble started the day Sarah was due back. I'd painted a "Welcome Home, Lieutenant Colonel Thompson" sign in navy blue letters, hung it on our porch, and filled the house with her favorite lilies. Our neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, waved from across the street, calling the sign lovely. Then Margaret Hayes stormed in like a thundercloud. At 58, widowed, and HOA president for a decade, Margaret ruled with an iron fist. Dressed in crisp business attire, she photographed my sign from every angle, measured its distance from the street, and muttered about rule breakers loud enough for the block to hear. When I asked what was wrong, she sneered, "Some people think they're above the law," and marched off. Evelyn and I exchanged baffled looks, but a chill settled in my gut. That night, our Ring doorbell caught Margaret at 11 p.m., in her bathrobe, measuring the sign again and scribbling notes. The footage was unsettlingly less about a rule violation and more like a calculated obsession. Over coffee the next morning, Sarah, still jet-lagged, studied the video with her military precision. "She's planning something," she said, her eyes narrowing. "The question is what?" At 8:15 a.m., an email arrived. Violation notice, unauthorized signage. Margaret's war had begun. I took the sign down, hoping to de-escalate, but it only emboldened her. Over the next week, fines piled up: $50 for a non-compliant blue doormat, $75 for flower pots 2 inches too tall, $100 for my truck parked crookedly in our driveway, and $25 for leaves from our tree on the sidewalk. Each morning brought a new email, a new jab, a reminder we were being watched. Sarah, who'd faced combat zones, called it harassment. I felt trapped, unable to fight without making things worse. The fines hit $400, a heavy blow for our working-class budget. Our neighbor, George Miller, a retired accountant, dropped a bombshell one evening. "Margaret's been measuring your property again," he whispered. "She did the same to me last year over a garden statue. Cost me $500 before I gave up." He revealed Horizon Properties had called him, too, right after Margaret's fines began. The timing felt too perfect. Was Margaret driving us out for a reason? The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. I was replanting flowers when Margaret appeared on my walkway, inches from my property, with Evelyn and another neighbor in tow. "I'm the HOA president," she bellowed, pointing at my pots. "These people need to follow rules, or I'll call the police." Evelyn looked mortified, clearly roped into Margaret's show. Sarah watched from the window, her military posture unmistakable. When Margaret stormed off, Sarah stepped outside and said quietly, "That woman needs a lesson." I hesitated, fearing escalation, but Sarah's resolve was unshakable. That night, we pored over HOA documents. Sarah noticed every rule we'd violated was new, added 3 weeks before her return. "This is a coordinated attack," she said, her voice steely. "But why?" The answer came Friday morning when Margaret called the cops. I was trimming hedges when sirens roared, and 2 officers approached, hands on radios. "Sir, we got a call about aggressive behavior with a weapon," the younger one said. Margaret, smirking, claimed I'd threatened her with my trimmers. Disbelief turned to rage as I held up the garden tool. Then Sarah emerged, calm but commanding, in jeans and a t-shirt. The officers asked for her ID, and when she handed over her military card, their demeanor shifted. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Thompson, USS Truman, the older officer asked, saluting subtly. Thank you for your service. I did 2 tours in Iraq. Margaret's smugness evaporated as the officers turned on her. Ma'am, this looks like a false report, the older one said sternly. That's a crime. Margaret stammered, then exploded, demanding their supervisor and screaming about discrimination. Neighbors gathered, phones out, recording her meltdown. After the cops left, Sarah and I laughed until tears streamed down our faces. In Afghanistan, we called airstrikes for less, she joked. We thought it was over. We were wrong. Saturday morning, a courier delivered a lawsuit from the HOA, backed by a high-priced law firm, accusing us of defamation and emotional distress, demanding $15,000 plus fees. Sarah stared at the papers. She's using our neighbors' money to attack us. The realization hit hard. Margaret wasn't just a bully, she was weaponizing the HOA. By Monday, Sarah was exhausted, falling asleep amid legal documents. I suggested selling to Horizon Properties and leaving. Sarah's eyes blazed. Daniel Carter, I didn't serve 15 years to let a bully win. This is our home. George knocked that evening, carrying a folder thick with HOA records. I've been digging, he said. Margaret's up to something dirty. He showed HOA fees had spiked 40% for legal expenses, yet no improvements materialized. Phone logs revealed Horizon's calls to residents always followed Margaret's fines. Most damning, Margaret had accessed my email, marking Horizon's offer as important. Sarah paced, her military mind in overdrive. She's running a scam with Horizon, she said. George grinned. Residents can audit HOA finances with a signed request. Let's fight back. Sarah turned our dining room into a war room, pinning documents and stringing timelines like a detective. George brought more records. Evelyn contributed violation notices, and other neighbors joined, forming a quiet rebellion. Sarah uncovered Stonegate Services, a shell company registered to Margaret, billing the HOA thousands for fake landscaping. Invoices matched Margaret's social media posts $2,000 for tree removal the day she flaunted a $3,000 handbag. George's ring footage showed no workers on those dates. She's stealing our money and bragging, Sarah muttered. By Wednesday, 7 residents met in George's basement, sharing stories of Margaret's harassment. Fines for bird feeders, Christmas lights, even a too bright mailbox. Each had gotten Horizon calls post fines. Sarah found Horizon's Sunset Meadows project needed our properties for a $50 million gated communities entrance. Emails between Margaret and Horizon, recovered from the HOA system, laid bare their plan. Margaret targeted residents, pressured them with fines and lawsuits, and Horizon bought low. She'd pocketed $40,000 in consulting fees. Friday, we finalized our plan. George called an emergency HOA meeting for Saturday, citing financial irregularities. Sarah built a presentation: harassment, fraud, conspiracy. This isn't revenge, she said. It's justice. The community center overflowed that night, tension crackling. Margaret arrived, smug with her defending standards, PowerPoint, schmoozing allies. George opened, citing residents' rights to transparency. Margaret scoffed, calling us troublemakers. Sarah took the stage, her military bearings silencing the room. Her presentation was devastating. She showed Margaret's 911 call alongside police footage of me trimming hedges, drawing laughs. Invoices from Stonegate Services, paired with Margaret's lavish posts, sparked outrage. The Horizon emails, with Margaret's voice plotting against us, left the room silent. Rodriguez property resistance stronger than expected, she'd written. Increased legal pressure. George called for a no-confidence vote. Hands shot up 28-1. Margaret was ousted. She erupted, screaming about lawsuits and discrimination, outing her Horizon ties. You'll regret this, she shrieked as phones recorded. Sarah announced the evidence would go to the DA and FBI for fraud and conspiracy charges. Margaret's face drained of color. 6 months later, she fled amid federal charges. Horizon's project collapsed under scrutiny. George, now HOA president, cut fees by 35%, and restored peace. Sarah's sign hangs proudly again, joined by one reading. This home stands for truth. Riverside Heights is the community we dreamed off Neighbors Wave. Evelyn brings casseroles, and justice prevails. But Margaret's tyranny raises questions. Have you faced a bully like her? How far would you go to protect your home? Share your thoughts below, especially on confronting abuse and injustice. Take a stand, your voice matters.